Good morning, everyone. It's another episode of Fitness Friday, and I'm standing here with one of my favorite, Casey Stutzman. How are you doing?
I'm good, sir. How are you doing?
Good. And what are we going to be talking about today?
We're going to be talking about how to extend your paddleboard season. So this time of year, the sun is finally shining, the snow is finally gone.
Yes.
People start to get really anxious about getting out on the water, but a lot of times people end up waiting until July or August for those warm days. And there's a lot of great ways that you can get out on the water right now in May, extending your season at least by a couple months, starting to enjoy some of that early spring paddling. There's just a couple things we want to consider and kind of a couple precautions we want to take because of the conditions.
Right. Okay.
So one of the big things is realizing that, with the weather shift and change during the spring, it's so important, check the weather before you go out. First and foremost, the winds can pick up in the spring and be consistent. So we want to make sure we know where the wind is coming from. If we're going out on the big lake, is it going to be at our back? Because if that's the case, then it's going to be a lot harder to come back in, or is it going to be in our face as we go out? So just know what the conditions are doing. Anything between 5 to 10 miles an hour in the wind is something that we have to account for. So make sure we know what direction the wind's coming from, what it's doing. The other thing while we're checking the weather is water temperature. Now there's the rule of 100. And this is a really good way to kind of see what the danger of potentially falling in and getting hypothermic could be, is if the air temp and the water temp together are over 100 degrees, you're going to be okay. But if it's under 100 degrees, that might not be a great day to go out, or just making sure that you're taking extra precautions. So for example, if the water's 50 degrees and the air temp's 50 degrees, that's borderline, you're okay. But anything below that, we're going to start to take precautions.
Right, but how do you take those precautions?
So that's a really good question. One of the not challenges, we just want to make sure we gear up appropriately. So a lot of times when people think stand-up paddling, the best way to get out there in cooler weathers is with a wetsuit, and that's not always the case. Wetsuits are meant to be worn when you are in the water. So when you're not in the water and you're standing and working, it turns into a walking sauna. And it can be really hot and really, really uncomfortable, not to mention hard to get on, hard to get off. It's nicer to have things that you can layer and change depending on the conditions, just to take the edge off. And it's not so much about the temperature, just like riding a bike. When you get out there, you're going to start to warm up. You just want something to keep you safe in case you fall. So a hooded sweatshirt or some thermals aren't going to quite do the job, because if I fall in, they're going to stay wet and waterlogged, and now I got that cold air cutting through me, and that could actually be disastrous. So we want to look for a neoprene base layer, something 1 to 2 millimeters, just to kind of take the edge off, and it's more to keep us safe in case we fall in. Okay. For men, a couple really good options is something like, we call these a surf jacket. Okay. And this is just 1 millimeter long sleeve shirt. So the great thing about this is it'll keep you warm, it'll keep you toasty, but if you fall in, it's going to keep you safe.
Right, and when it's very light.
It's very, very light. And you're not going to just sweat crazy like you would on a wetsuit that normally start between 2 and 3 millimeters. And again, it's full body coverage. I usually pair these up with a pair of compression shorts for men. So I wear these under my board shorts, and that way like my core is covered. So if I fall in, it's not going to be the most pleasant experience, but I'm going to be safe. I don't have to worry about getting hypothermic. I have plenty of time to get back to shore. For women, we have very similar type things. You can get the long sleeves, or something like a jacket is really nice, because if you do start to warm up, you can unzip, so that's a really nice feature. Capri length pants are a really nice thing.
But and I'm smiling because that's very stylish.
It is. Well, you got to style, right? For my money, the one thing, boots. Because when you're stand-up paddling, your feet are going to get wet. And there's been tons of springs that the weather is beautiful. The water is not super cold. The air is really nice. It's a 60-degree day. But after about 30, 40 minutes, my feet just start to go numb, just because they're constantly wet and that little tiny chill in the air. So these have made it where I can get out in the spring way longer than I used to be able to before. So a nice pair of boots. These are 5 millimeters. These ones, it's okay to go a little bit heavier because your feet are going to stay wet and get wet. So these are worth their weight in gold. If I had to have one piece of neoprene to get me out in the spring, it'd be these guys right there.
Right. Now, I noticed, me and you were talking earlier about, like, you can sink, with certain things you wear out there. So talk a little bit about that.
So the other nice thing about the neoprene is it's buoyant. It's a rubber, so it gives you a little bit of buoyancy. So if you're not the strongest swimmer, it's going to help keep you up a little bit more. If you do fall in, it's a little bit easier to get back on the board. We have to be careful when we're wearing warm clothes and layering for cooler temperatures, whether it be in the spring or in the fall, because some of that stuff can hold a lot of moisture and can actually start to pull and sink us down. So that's where the neoprene comes in huge. And it's really, that whole setup there is maybe around, between boots and shorts and jacket and the whole nine, anywhere between $80 and $150. It's really reasonable. And that's going to give you at least an extra 3 to 4 months on your paddle season. So it's definitely worth the investment. One of the other things that we always want to make sure that we have, and it's actually required by law to always have some sort of personal flotation device, either affixed to the board or affixed to the body. One of my favorite is these belt pack styles. So these are really nice. They just go around your waist. It's light. If I do fall in, I don't have to worry about it getting lost or waterlogged or things. You pull this tab and whoosh, just like on the airplanes, the thing puffs open and you're good to go.
Now, I also wanted to talk a little bit about the benefits of paddling. I've actually been on a paddle. It freaked me out, but I got a good workout. Right. Arms, legs, everything.
So when I've always enjoyed paddle sports, kayaking, canoeing, and I still love those things. For me, the time that I could participate in those activities was limited. After about 45 minutes to an hour, just the seated position, it just started to I'd need to shift and move. The standing position for me is just a lot more comfortable, and I can harness more of my body's power and energy. Because of the leverage, the standing position, I can use my hips more, so I actually find it's something I can do longer. I can go greater distances. I can be in heavier waters and conditions. So it really kind of opened up a lot for me in terms of longer paddles, big lake experience, things that I didn't have the capability to do, me personally, on some of the smaller vessels. The other thing I really like about the paddleboard is a pretty good all-around board is going to work in big lakes, rivers, inland lakes. Whereas if I'm looking at kayaks, canoes, there's definitely a line between like a kayak I would use in like Long Lake versus something I would take out on Lake Huron. Right. So this is nice because I can pretty much go to any body of water and I'm good to go.
Now, which one would you recommend? I know we got different kinds.
So that really depends on the person. It depends on the paddler. Like, so this guy's inflatable, which is really nice for this person that doesn't have a lot of storage space, travels a lot, has a small car. This guy behind me over here with the big point, that's a touring board or a light racing board. So that's awesome for the big lake. It's great for long distances, overnight excursions, loading up gear, things of that. This guy here is more on the surf end of the all-around. It's got a nice rocker or bow to the bottom of it, so it catches and rides waves really well. So it really just depends on what type of paddling you're looking at, what level. Are you entry level, more advanced? Are you interested in long distance, surfing, all around? And we can get you set up with whatever's going to work best.
Well, I know I'm entry level, so.
And there's a great line of boards that are perfect for entry level, families, multiple users. So it depends on what the person's looking for. But there is a board out there for everybody.
Right. Well, thank you once again for, this little paddle lesson because, like you said, it's springtime and people want to get out on the water. It's a beautiful day today. So once again, Casey, thank you so much for the lesson and education on paddling. And if anybody wants to get out here and get in the water this spring, what do they need to do?
They can stop in at any time. We start our paddleboard rentals Memorial Day weekend, and that'll go all the way through Labor Day. So we're open 7 days a week for questions on purchasing boards or rentals or anything someone needs. They can also find information at our website, performancelocker.com.
All right, that was your Fitness Fridays.